Hi everyone, it's Plastic EP here from Melbourne, Australia. I'm go straight to the top of the charts. And let me tell you, I got a very special guest, John Madara. Now, John Madara wrote so many songs, great songs that the world loves. And here's one of them that I love.
Just one of your many toys. You don't own me. Don't say I can't go with other boys.
We love it. John Madara, how are you today?
Good, my friend. How you doing today?
Excellent. Now, welcome to go straight to the top of the charts, and that's where those songs go.
Go straight to the top of the charts. Go straight to the top of the charts. From 10 to 1, you gotta show number 1 when you go straight to the top of the charts. Top of the charts, top of the charts. That song's gonna climb to the top. When you go straight to the top of the charts. When you go straight to the top of the charts. When you go straight to the top, right to the top. When you go straight to the top of the charts.
Right, we'll get straight into it today. Now, let me tell you, John, when you wrote that song, You Don't Own Me, in 1964 with your co-writer, David, as well, and that song went to number 2 and was held back by I Want to Hold Your Hand by the Beatles. I'm just saying, how great was that? And Leslie Gore was only 17. Tell me how the song ended up with her, and you did the intro on the actual recording. Tell me everything. I can't wait.
Well, I became friends with Quincy Jones. David and I had a deal with Mercury Records, and we were producing records for them. And it was the initial meeting we had with Mercury Records that Quincy Jones was there. And we were playing some of the new things we had just finished producing. And they loved the things we were playing for them. They wanted the Philly sound. And so Quincy says, "Have you had anything new that you've written?" So we said, "We just wrote this new song for one of our artists that we're getting ready to record." And that was Maureen Gray. And we played it for Quincy, and he fell down. He just said, "Wow, what a great song." So he said, "I'd love to do that with Leslie Gore. I'm doing her album right now." So he said, "How about driving up to Grossinger's, which was a resort up in the Pocono Mountains, and play it for Leslie?" So that Saturday, we drive up to Poconos, and we found Leslie by the pool, and David had a baritone ukulele, and we play her You Don't Know Me with a baritone ukulele, which was unusual. And she liked it. She said, "Can I hear it with piano?" So we went into the main building of Grossinger's and played it for her with piano, and she loved it. And Quincy got on the phone and he said, "All right, I want you guys to go see Klaus Ogerman." Now, Klaus Ogerman was the arranger who did It's My Party and Judy's Turn to Cry. And he wanted us to go up there and dictate the arrangement to Klaus, which we did. And it was all set to be recorded. So Quincy said, "How about showing up at the session? I'd like you guys to be there." So we showed up at the session. And when we got there, they were actually recording You Don't Own Me. And so they got done the take, and Quincy asked us what we thought. And the piano introduction, that ba ba bum dum dum dum, that was not on there, and we had wrote the song with that. And so we told Quincy, and he said, "All right, guys, go out and make some changes." And we did. We went and added the piano, added a string line, did an extra modulation, changed something in Leslie's performance, and that was it. We came back in the studio. They did a take, and everybody was knocked out. And Quincy actually played it for the band and then played it for the people that were in the studio and asked them to write down on a piece of paper what song they liked the best out of the whole album. And everyone picked You Don't Own Me. So it became the single, her next single. And it was great. And it was a great thing to happen to us.
Tell me now what it's like with the Beatles, with like they had number 5 songs in the top of the charts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 eventually. But what I'm saying is, What was it like when it's 1964? I Want to Hold Your Hands, #1, and your song "You Don't Own Me" is #2. I mean, that must have been a fantastic time. Just tell me about specifically when it hit #2, what that was like.
Oh, it was magical because to be in the same league as the Beatles was fantastic, and it really was our first big slow song. It really was the first big slow song that we wrote, and and being back the Beatles was an honor. And so no, in fact, George Harrison, who was a good friend of mine, George had always loved that song. He always liked a couple of the records that we made. He would always talk about them. And "You Don't Know Me" was one of his favorites. His favorite was "1, 2, 3." We used to have great conversations about production.
And what was it like talking with George? I'm just saying, he became a good friend.
George was just a down to earth, beautiful heart, and easy to talk to. Easy to talk to. Always was inquiring about sounds. He'd ask, "Well, that record when you did At the Hop, I mean, was that a stereo session? Was that a mono session?" And I would tell him it was a mono session, and he had a favorite, which was 1, 2, 3, and he said that John Lennon loves that song. He said John Lennon loves it. He has it on his jukebox at home. He said it's his favorite. He says, "I love the drum sound." So I had to describe to him how I got the drum sound.
And to write, as I said, 1, 2, 3 by Len Barry, right?
Great record.
Co-write that. How huge is that too? That's a great song.
Yeah, that went #1 in Cashbox and went #2 in Billboard. That was a good record. I mean, and Len Barry, incredible artist, and he was the lead singer for the Dovells. He sang "Bristol Stomp," "You Can't Sit Down," "Hully Gully Baby." That was all Len Barry. Incredible artist. I think him and Bunny Sigler, they were the two artists that I just loved to work with so much. And the girl groups we had were the Pixies 3, the Secrets. They were great, and the Sherrys. They were great girl groups. Loved to work with them. But you always have something that you did that was your favorite. And 1, 2, 3 was, and You Don't Know Me, but 1, 2, 3 I think was my favorite record because it was something that just started in my car as I was driving home one night. And I got the melody, and it was called, I was singing 1, 2, and 3. And went in the next day, we were having a writing session with Len Barry for his album. And I said, I got this melody and I have this song I've been singing, 1, 2, and 3. And Lenny says right away, he says, no, we got to call it 1, 2, 3. And it turned out to be 1, 2, 3. And we finished writing that song that day. Lenny was an incredible lyric writer, and Dave was a great lyric writer. And I put in some lyrics already. So we just sat down and finished the song. And that drum sound was something that I had envisioned in my head that I wanted to do in the studio. And I walked in about an hour and a half earlier before the session. And I walked around the studio with the engineer, and I knew we were going to have acoustic guitars. I knew we were going to have 2 acoustic pianos, and of course the drums. And I had 2 drummers on that session. And so there was a lot of open mics. There wasn't, I think it wasn't coming direct. It was all being mic'd. So with all that microphones open, I hung up a microphone at the top of the studio in the back in the right-hand corner. I hung it up as high as I can hang it. And that captured just the room. Nothing else, only the room sound with everybody leaking into that microphone. And that's how I got the drum sound. It was a part of it was one of the faders. And when I did the mix, I kind of snuck that fader up with the room and accented the drums a little bit more. And the drums, because they were leaking from the drums, which were about 50 feet away from the microphone, 60 feet away. And it was just leaking into the room, and I picked up that drum sound, added the original tracks, which were being mic'd, and the room. And that was the sound. And
now, let me take you back. You're 19 years old. You write a song, and you got the title, and Dick Clark says you should change that to At the Hop. And that's a #1 song in 1958, the year I was born as well, so I know all about it. That's the most famous song for 1958 because, as I said, Plastic EP is born in 1958. So when I think about when I was born, I think about Danny and the Juniors at the Hop. It's that great. Just tell me how Dick Clark told you to change the name. What was the original title?
The original title was Do the Bop, and Do the Bop was going to be my follow-up record. I had a record out called Be My Girl that was on the charts. Didn't get very high on the charts, but I was set to do another single. And I was under contract to Capitol. They had a label called Prep Records. And so Prep was supposed to be their rock and roll label. So we do the Bop in Philly with David's group, was the Juvenaires, and I sang lead. And we went up and played it for Capitol. And typical of that era, most of the executives didn't have ears. They didn't know a hit record, from a ham sandwich. I mean, they really didn't know. So they didn't like it. They wanted me to be produced by this gentleman who was producing Ray Charles and Paul Anka, Sid Feller. And so went back to Philly and played it for Dick Clark. And Dick says, well, the Bop isn't really happening around the country. I actually have a video clip of that, of Dick saying it on the show. He said, well, the Bop wasn't really happening. And I told these guys, well, if you change the title, you're going to have a hit record there. And he said, why don't you call something about hops, like At the Hop? And that's what we did. And we changed the words. And because I had already tried it, I couldn't bring it back to my record company anymore. So we did it with the group, and we changed the name from Juvenaires to Danny and the Juniors. And the record was an immediate hit. It sold like 40,000 copies in Philly. And then it went to ABC Paramount. That record has sold over 20 million records. Just that, and plus it's been in about 8 movies, that song. So
that's a record that took over a nation, like they're singing about in the song. That in 1958, and I got to say, this is like, I don't know, but it's so mind-boggling to think you're on Dick Clark, American Bandstand, and your song is number 1 in 1958, the song of the year. I mean, like that back then is, and you're only 19 years old. I mean, you must have been top of the world, honestly.
It's funny because I remember very clearly that it was climbing the charts, and it was on that show, The Hit Parade, which was on Saturday night. And it was on the hit parade like about number 6, number 4. And then the following Saturday, of course, you're hoping it's going to jump up on the charts on the hit parade. And of course, you'd like it to be number 1. But that would never happen. So we're watching the hit parade, and they go through all the top 10, and they get down to 4, 2, 3, 2, and there's no At the Hop. So I said to my mom and my aunt, we were sitting there in my aunt's house. I said, oh, well, it was on, it got on there, and it did a couple of weeks. That's great. So the announcer comes on, he says, and now for the number 1 record of the week, At the Hop. Well, I as a boy, I fell down. I mean, I was just blown away that living in the projects, poor, working 3 jobs, and now number 1 record and well, it became number 1 record all over the world. Yeah, it was pretty exciting. It was pretty exciting. And it opened.
Now, I've got to ask you about the song you wrote, Pride is Such a Little Word. That's the full title, is it?
Exactly. Well,
and Billy J. Kramer did that song.
Yeah, Billy J. Kramer. And we had a girl group, too, that had a hit in Australia. I'm trying to remember the song. I don't remember the song, but we've had quite a few records in Australia. Of course.
Now, since you mentioned Australia, the biggest song is Sadie, the Cleaning Lady, that made Johnny Farnham his first song. And it goes, people in Australia don't know the song, right? But it's Sadie, the Cleaning Lady.
Pail of water.
Work their fingers. I love that song. When that came out in November 1967, went straight to number 1 right in the Go Set National Chart. Charted, sold like 180,000 copies. Every car in Australia, every milk bar, every place was playing Sadie, the cleaning lady, and his name was Johnny Farnham then, right? Not John Farnham, the voice. And let me tell you,
Well,
that song is embedded in Australian culture. Now you got to tell me, how did he get the demo? How was it set up that he heard the song, your demo, and then he recorded it?
Well, we were sitting around the office one night and getting ready to leave. And Ray Gilmore, who was a DJ and a good friend, said he had this idea for a song called Sadie. Well, we sat down and Ray started singing it, and we did it like a Herman's Hermits kind of a guitar lick, that junk 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 junk, and it just happened. And I don't know if we ever intended it to be a single, but we wrote it, and it was kind of what was happening with Herman's Hermits and the era, and I don't think we gave it a second thought really, but we were in the studio and we had some time left, and Joe Renzetti, a great arranger, and my good buddy, I said to Joe, hey Joe, play like a little Herman's Hermits, junk 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 junk, and so Joe started playing it, and I start singing Sadie, the cleaning lady, and I put a little English accent on it, and it turned out good. The demo was good, and I don't know how it got to Johnny. I have no idea how it got to Johnny, unless the publisher who was publishing our material sent it to Australia. I have no idea, but I was looking at Billboard one day, and I would check the foreign charts to see what was happening on the foreign charts, and I got to Australia, and I get #1 record, Sadie, huh? There can't be two titles called Sadie, and we find out that was our song, and yeah, it was a thrill. But I watched Johnny on one of the shows he was doing from a club, and everybody was asking him to sing Sadie. So he says, he says, Sadie got me started, he said, but he said, it wasn't really a great song. She says, but it got me started. I like it because it got me started. So he says, I'm going to do it because the people are singing, sing Sadie, sing Sadie. And he had a way of doing it. He would do Sadie.
Now, John, I'm just going to play a bit of the demo. Can I play a bit of your demo?
Sure.
Okay, I love it. Listen to this.
Sadie, a cleaning lady, with trusty scrubbing brush and pail of water. Worked her fingers to the bone, bought a light she had at home, providing at the same time for her daughter. Sadie, the cleaning lady, her aching knees not getting any younger. Do her red detergent hands had for years not held her man's, and time would find her heart expired of hunger. Scrub your blood to your church, dear old Sadie. Look as though you'll always be a cleaning lady. Can't afford to get bored, dear old Sadie. Look as though you'll always be a cleaning lady.
I love it. Now, let me tell you, John, to be able to hear your actual demo and you sent it to me, and I know Johnny Farnham's version, go on YouTube, go on the net and hear John's version. Just what an amazing song for that time, because you captured a very happy time here in Australia. You got no idea, and everyone's walking around going to work singing Sadie. It's just such a novelty song. It's stuck in your brain since then. They still love it.
I've met some people, actually, I was in San Francisco, and I was at the end of the Golden Gate Bridge, and there's like a little landing there where you can look out over the city. And I was there, and it was about 8 people from Australia. So my friend says to them, he says, well, John is a songwriter, and he wrote a song that was a big hit in Australia. And they said, what was the song? And he said, Sadie. And they all started singing it. They all started singing, Sadie, the cleaning lady. I was, wow. No, that song has, more people that I have met know that song. It's a great piece of music history. It really is.
But I got to tell you, John, you know where it's mind-boggling for me. Okay, 19 at the hop, one of the greatest songs, number one. Then you do "You Don't Own Me," right? To me, the greatest song just about written you can ever write in your career. That's how big that song is to me. And then, as I said, then 1, 2, 3, Len Barry, and then you do Sadie. At that point in 1967, it's great that you did it because you've written 5 number one songs. Tell me the 5 songs, if you can, that went to number one.
Well, we, of course, at the hop, Rock and Roll's Here to Stay went, I think, went to number 3 or 4, something like that. And then, of course, The Fly with Chubby Checker went top 10. I was a publisher on Expressway to Your Heart, Cowboys to Girls. And then, of course, 1, 2, 3 went to number 1. You Don't Own Me went to number 1. When I think of all the records we made, I go backwards and I say, wow, I don't even remember a lot of the records we made. I mean, if I think about them, I can get all the titles, but David and I wrote over 300 songs. We had, oh my God, with all the chart records, with the ones that went like the 80s and the 70s and the 30s, we've had over 40 top 50 records. I was so excited about being in the music business. That's something that I've always loved, that I was actually in the business, actually writing songs, actually having hit records. It was like a dream. It was like a dream. And then, of course, finding people like Leon Huff, who joined our team and became one of the writers that we wrote with a lot, was fantastic. It was fantastic. And Len Barry, who was my best friend, and Lenny, working with Len Barry was maybe one of the best experiences of my whole career. He was a great singer, an incredible lyric writer, and I cried like a baby when he died a few months ago. Yeah, he was a great talent. What a talent! And I get a lot of joy out of the fact of just making the records. If some that never sold, that was okay. But making the records was more fun than anything. Just actually going into the studio and you have an idea in your head and you make it happen. That to me is the best, whether it's a hit or not. But we had the Dawn of Correction also by the Spokesman, and that was unusual because we had just made a deal with Decca, and we had 1, 2, 3 was climbing the charts rapidly, but we had the Dawn of Correction by the Spokesman, which was myself and David and Ray Gilmore. We wrote that song in an evening, and Ray says, let's write a song about an answer to the eve of destruction. So let's call it the Dawn of Correction. And we sat down, we wrote it that night, recorded it in about a week, and within 2 weeks it was on the national charts. And we found ourselves doing TV shows as artists. So we're writing and we're producing. We did the American Bandstand, and Dick, who was a big fan of our work, and Dick asked us, he said, didn't you guys just write the song we just played, the 1, 2, 3? And David says, yeah, John and I wrote it and produced it. Oh, Dick says, you guys are trying to cover the market. He said, you tried to cover the whole market here, write them, sing them, and do everything. To me, I'm honored to be able to have written songs that people like. It's an honor. It really is. It's a dream. I lived in the projects, and I used to sit on the couch at home, and my mom had the radio on all the time because that was the cheapest form of entertainment. And I would sing along with all the records she would play. It was the Ink Spots or Don Cornell or whoever it was, Vaughn Monroe even. I would sing along with them. So I was 5, 6 years old. So I would constantly keep on doing that until I was like 14 or so. And I remember I got a new suit. It was the first suit I ever got, actually. And I had the suit on. And because I had this frustration of wanting to be a singer, I had someone take a picture of me with my arms out like I'm singing. I still have that picture. That's funny. And it happened because I was working a lot of jobs, and I got to say, I think I'll take singing lessons. And that's what I did. I took singing lessons, which led me to make my first record. And it's been a joy. it's just been a joy. I've had my song's been in 80 motion pictures. Um, yeah, I mean, of all the things that we've done, we, we've sold over 500 million records. At the Hop, sold over 20 million records alone. And the Dirty Dancing album. Well, with Jimmy Einer, who was the producer of Dirty Dancing and the album, and Jimmy says to me, "No, John, it didn't sell. I thought it sold 49 million." He said, "No, John, it sold 51 million." So I said, "Well, I didn't get paid on 51 million." So no, it's been a joy. It's meeting the artist and then knowing that they sing and then listening to them sing and then coming up with ideas. Oh, I got a song. Maybe we can write the song for this one with this kind of a beat. And that's what we did. And that's what we did. I opened up a record shop in Philly after At the Hop, Rock and Roll's Here to Stay, and Dottie, which were the first three Danny and the Junior records. And I produced a group called the Majestics. They were out of, I think, Baltimore. And then another group called the Premiers. Were out of Philly. But they weren't hits. And I said, well, what am I going to do the rest of my life? So I opened up a record shop in the black section of Philly. And that opened the door to meeting all kinds of artists. A girl by the name of Maureen Gray, who was an incredible singer. We recorded her, and then we did a band called Carl and the Commanders, who did the track for The Fly. We brought the finished record up to Cameo, and we played it for them with the Carl and the Commanders lead singer, and they loved it. But we wanted to put out the way it was with our singer. And Bernie Lowe, who was the president of Cameo, says, no, this would be a great follow-up for Chubby. And no, we want to put our singer on. They said, well, we'll put the record out and we'll cover you, like they covered Hank Ballard with The Twist. So we gave in, and we put Chubby's voice on the track, put background vocals on, and record came out and it was an immediate hit. Again, all these things that were happening were always, I'd go, wow, that's happening? I was always amazed. Not because I didn't believe in the records. I just couldn't believe it was happening to me. I didn't believe that. I was really a part of the music business. It became more of a joy. And as I got to know people like Leon Huff, who is a genius, and Daryl Hall, who I discovered, you get another sense of being creative. It's not just what comes out of you, but you're listening to what comes out of other people, and you say, whoa, boy, can that guy sing? Daryl Hall, ooh, what a voice. And that's really how I just kept on making records. I mean, the last thing I did with David, David really wasn't at the session. He was kind of at the session, but that was Let the Good Times Roll with Bunny Sigler. And that was really the last thing. And then David and I broke up after that. And so I went on to sign a guy by the name of Sherman Marshall, who wrote a lot of the Spinners hits. And of course, I had Len Barry in the office, and I had Leon. So we started making more Northern Soul kind of records at that point. And we're still having hits. And I had this kid, Tommy Sellers, who did the overture to Tommy by the Assembled Multitude. That was part of our team. And Tommy did Kemosabe, which was another instrumental hit. We were having hits. But then I came out to California and did a session out here for Polydor. And I was blown away by the musicians. I had the Wrecking Crew. I had Hal Blaine and Joe Osborne and Larry Knechtel, Tommy Tedesco. I mean, these guys were on every album. The Beach Boys, Phil Spector. I mean, they were even the rhythm section for the Byrds. The Byrds didn't play on their records. That was the Wrecking Crew.
The Monkees.
The Monkees. They played on the Monkees. And Paul Simon and Artie Garfunkel. Hal Blaine told me, he says, yeah, man, on the Bridge Over Troubled Water, he says, they wanted something exciting. So I went into the echo chamber with a set of chains, had a set of heavy chains. And he says, every time on the backbeat, I would just, boom, hit the heavy chains in the echo chamber. on the ground. Boom. He said, that's how we got the sound. Yeah, Hal was awesome. Awesome drummer. If you ever listen to Be My Baby, after the instrumental, and they come back with the Be My Baby, and then Hal does that doom, 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 doom. And then it goes back into the song. Well, the first drum fill that Hal plays after it goes back into the song is awesome. It's one of my favorite drum fills ever. And then he keeps on playing drum fills all the way out. So if you pay attention to those, like I did, because I love drums. The drums are my favorite instrument. And hear Hal play the drums. I mean, I did a session with Wayne Newton. Wayne called me and wanted me to produce some sides with him. So I went in and met him. Wayne, beautiful human being, just a nice guy. So we had this song, it was a Neil Sedaka song called The Hungry Years. And we get to the session and Wayne says to me, there's a middle section here. He said, I want to do a little recital in there, just a few words I want to recite. So I knew he was going to do that. So I said, well, if he's going to do that, coming out of that talk, I got to have something real exciting happen. So I went over to Hal Blaine. I said, Hal, when Wayne does that recitation, I want you to play me an out-of-the-box drum fill. I mean, I want it to be something that just comes out of your head and whatever you think you want to do. So we get to that part of the record. Wayne does his little recitation, and Hal does this fill. Oh my God! Whenever I want to get really excited, I play that record and listen to that drum fill. It's an incredible drum fill. Yeah, see, that's the fun of making records for me. It was never about you're going to have a hit or you're going to make some money. It was never that. It was always about making the record, going into the studio, and what you had in your brain is now on tape. And now you sit back and you listen to the tape, the playback. Oh, it's the best. In fact, the best, most incredible feeling of all for me is when we do an album, we do 11, 12 sides, and you get done, and all the time you're doing overdubs, adding this, and do some more background vocals, double the background vocals, add a guitar part. You keep working on the album till you're done. So now you're done, and you've assembled the album. You've got 11, 12 cuts. You've leadered them all up. You got them on one reel of tape. You turn the lights off in the studio. You kick back in a nice chair, and you listen to the whole album. Nothing better than that. Nothing. You hear your creation from 1 to 12. Oh, awesome. It is. It's the most awesome feeling. So that's the joy I get out of making records. Making the record is actually, that's the joy. If it sells,
Yeah, John, I got to ask you.
Sure.
I want to know the inside of this. You Don't Own Me. Where did the song come to you? Were you in your lounge room? Were you home? Were you walking in the park? I want to know the inner workings of the song. Did you get 2 words or 3 words and the song grew? Tell me the story behind that specific song.
There is a story. We were getting ready to write for Maureen Gray for a follow-up session. She had Dancing the Strand, which was a fairly, got on the charts here in America. It wasn't a giant hit, but it was on the charts. And she was incredible. I mean, she was really incredible singer. So we're sitting down to write, and I said to David, I said 2 things about writing a new song. I said, let's write something that's more like a Bacharach David, more classy song, not the typical rock and roll chords. I said, let's write something maybe with minor key, going to a major. So we sat down, we started writing the song, and the title You Don't Own Me came up, and it stuck. And we finished writing the song. It took about 2 days, I think, to write the song. We wrote it in one part, and then we finished the song the next day. And we did a demo on that, actually. We did a demo on it with a young lady who was a friend of actually Quincy's. And we did a demo on it, and we liked the demo. We liked the demo a lot. But it didn't really happen until we went to Chicago, and we met Quincy, and then we did the demo. Then we went up to play for Leslie. Then we actually recorded with Leslie. But the title came about from those words. Just write a song about a girl telling a guy off. And that was novel, actually.
Well, that's a great theme, isn't it?
Yes.
That theme's going on around the world 24 hours a day.
And that piano lick came because the introduction on the Maureen Gray record, Dancing the Strand, was ba ba bum 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 bum. So we want to do a piano introduction. So I said to David, something like ba ba bum. And David played it on the piano, and yeah, it sounded right. And that happened. And David and I, we always said we weren't much as songwriters as we were record writers, because we would have a concept of a record, not just a song. Let's write a song with a groove like this. Let's write a song that has this kind of a hook. So we would actually think about it way before we wrote the song. So we were writing the song, we really were writing a record, because we'd have the bass line, we'd have the drum part, we'd have everything kind of already created when we wrote the song. So when we were done the song, it was easy to sit down and work with musicians and say, well, I'll do this in the introduction, and it worked out. Hal Blaine always said to me, he would say, Johnny, he said, Neil Diamond would come into the studio. He said, he'd play us a song, no introduction or anything, just play us the song. And he said, we really produced those records, he said, because Tommy Tedesco, come up with an introduction there. And Tommy would come up with a little introduction. And then Hal would play something that was real groovy, and the bass player would come in. And he said, that's how he made the Neil Diamond records. They were all like head arrangements. They would just do them in the studio, just work it out in the studio. But Neil wrote those great songs. Neil had those hooky, great songs.
I'm a believer by the Monkees.
Oh yeah, no. Neil was an incredible writer, is an incredible writer, and great artist. One of the best artists I've ever seen in person. One of the best. Those are great memories, my friend. They are just great memories, and I have so many great memories from the business. I worked with Bo Diddley, Carmine Appice from the Vanilla Fudge, Timmy Bogart from the Vanilla Fudge. Bo Diddley was awesome. And a lot of these people became friends. And Little Richard was a friend. And I just loved the guy. He was just awesome to be around, and an awesome man. He was just a good guy. Last time I saw Richard, right before he died, actually, not too long before he died, I was in LA, and I was in the elevator going up to fourth or fifth floor. I forget what it was. But I was going to see somebody. Elevator door opens up. I get in, and there's Richard. Hey, Johnny. Richard, man, how you doing, man? I said, you look so good. He said, I'm always pretty. He said, I'm always pretty. And I said, man, how you been? And he says, I'm rocking, man. I'm rocking. He said, I'm doing a show tomorrow night. He says, and I can't wait to get on that piano. Richard was real. He was real. He had his thing, whatever, like most artists do. But he was a great guy to be around. Incredible artist. And man, when he opened his mouth, the performances were outrageous. And that's one of the best pluses of the music business. I got to meet a lot of people, and and become friends with some of them. And that's incredible. I mean, because I lived in the projects. I didn't know where my next meal was coming from. And I remember I used to go down to the grocery store with my wagon after school, and I'd sit there in front of the grocery store with my wagon, and people walk out with 2 or 3 bags. And I'd say, lady, can I take your groceries home for you? And I would. And I'd get a quarter tip or 20 cents or whatever. And my goal was to get 75 cents. Why? Because with 75 cents, I could buy a box of Datilli pasta, a small can of tomato sauce, and a can of cannoli white beans. And with that, my mom made pasta vajol. Now, we ate pasta vajol maybe 3 times a week. But it was an inexpensive meal. And so to go from that life into the music business, I can't even describe the feeling. It's over the top. It's over the top. It really is. And to have success, that was even great, to have success. Yeah. I'm grateful. I'm so grateful to God, and grateful to the people I've worked with. Just great musicians and great engineers. How do you beat that in life, really? Getting what you want in life, and having success at it. There's nothing better than that. There really isn't. There's nothing better than that. So I keep on writing, and I just finished writing some new songs. I'm going in to record. I started as a singer, and my voice is the best it's ever been. And I'm going in to record with some great musicians, and I got some killer songs. In fact, I'm going to do some songs that one of my friends from Australia, a man by the name of Gino Cunico. I don't know if you know Gino Cunico. He worked like crazy back there with a couple of bands in Australia. In fact, his son, Anthony, is living in Australia. He just moved back from California to Australia. And Anthony, can Anthony sing? Man, one of the best I've ever heard in my life, Anthony Cunico. And Gino Cunico had an album out on Arista that Barry Manilow took 2 songs out of it and had hits with. Can't Smile Without You was a Gino Cunico recording, and Clive Davis said, well, we're looking for some material. Hey, why don't you record the song that Gino did? So Gino didn't get the hit, which he should. His version is way superior to Barry Manilow's. But Gino didn't get the hit. And he wrote, he had Barry Manilow's last hit. I can't think of the title. That's one of my good Australian friends, Gino Cunico. Yeah, a classic singer, one of the best. If you ever do something, go online and punch in Gino Cunico and listen to him sing Can't Smile Without You. Powerful, powerful.
Now, I've got to go back. And the reason why I'm going back again is You Don't Own Me. I'm a big Dusty Springfield fan.
Oh, yes.
So what I did last night is, this is true. I'm listening to Leslie Gore's version and I'm listening to Dusty. Now, they're both great. But let me tell you, with your instrumentation and your intro on the Leslie Gore one, and that came out first, to me, that's the greatest version. But let me tell you, how did Dusty come to have the UK hit with that? Did they come to you and say, Dusty's going to do your song, or we want Dusty to do it? How did she end up recording the songs for the UK?
Now, there were just, there was quite a few cover records on You Don't Own Me. Quite a few. Even Percy Faith, the instrumental genius, actually. Percy Faith did a recording of it. I think Lawrence Welk even did a recording of it. There was quite a few recordings of it. Jane Morgan, at the time, a lot of people who were great singers, that weren't rock and roll singers, did a version of You Don't Own Me, which was always good. I mean, it was hard to spoil the song. One of my favorite versions is from the First Wives Club. At the end of the movie, Diane Keaton, Goldie Hawn, and Bette Midler sing You Don't Own Me. I went to the movie theater, and I knew the song was going to be in the picture. But early in the movie, they just come back from a funeral. One of their girlfriends had died, and they're reminiscing about the past. And they say, remember that song we used to sing? And they're all drinking a little wine. And that song that Leslie Gore, You Don't Own Me. And Bette Midler goes, You don't own me. And the girls go, oh, no. They didn't want to get involved in singing it. But at the end of the movie, when they do this First Wives Club for women that are divorced, and they're all done, and they're sitting at the table there, and they're very happy because the night went really well. And they said, well, it went great that tonight. But one thing we didn't do. And they all look at each other, and Bette Midler goes, You don't own me. And Goldie Hawn says, No. And they all move out to the center of the room, and they start singing it. And then they do this dance. I was in the theater because in the beginning, like I said, they're drinking wine, and to do a little bit that they do, You Don't Own Me. I said, oh, that's great. They mentioned the song in there. They did a little bit of it. That's great. But I didn't know what was coming in the ending. A 3-minute production of it. I sat there. I think the people must have thought I was nuts because I had my mouth down to the ground. I was so, I mean, because it's an incredible version. And then at the end of the song, they put on their coats, and as they're still singing, they walk out the door, and they're walking down the street in the rain. Oh, I got goosebumps. It was really thrilling. So I get done the movie, and I go outside. There's a telephone, and I get on the phone. I'm trying to call David. I've called Dave 1,000 times. I couldn't remember his number. I just couldn't remember his number. I was so excited about the movie. And I finally got Dave on the phone. Dave, you got to run to the movie theater. You got to see this. You're going to blow your mind. So that was really as far as someone doing the song other than Leslie, I loved that because it was so different. It was so different. And of course, it was in the Dirty Dancing. Oh, it's been in a bunch of movies. It was in Hairspray. My friend, it just blows me away. It really does. I mean, I appreciate it and I love it, but I'm always blown away. I'm up for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year and the Songwriters Hall of Fame. I mean, it seems like that's over the top. I can't even imagine that. So I accept it and I appreciate it, but it's over the top for me. It really is.
I just can't believe the songs that you've written. And now, as I said, it's good that you're doing interviews. You're coming out. A lot of people are going to interview you, believe me, after this interview, because you got some fantastic stories to tell. Now, I want to talk about Bobby Rydell. You've worked with Bobby, yeah?
No, didn't actually work with him, but I was at the session when Bobby recorded one of our songs. He only did one of our tunes, which was a song called Sideshow. And that's when he went to Capitol from Cameo. But I knew Bobby all along the Cameo days. I mean, all the guys there, Bobby, Chubby, the Dovells, we were all friends. We all knew each other. We were all the same place. My office was right across the street from Cameo. So we had a lot of interaction going on. I mean, I would sit outside of the building, the Schubert building, and Jerry Ross, who was a real good record producer also, he was on the 6th floor. I was on the 2nd floor. Leon Huff and Kenny Gamble met in the elevator. Kenny was coming from 6th. Leon got on at the 2nd floor, and they looked at each other. What do you do? I write songs. Well, I write songs too. Let's get together. 30 number one records. 30. And about 25 to 30 platinum albums. Monster talent. And Leon...
Now, I've got to say, why is it that all these great people are coming out from Philadelphia and they stay in Philadelphia, really? Like, let me tell you, Frankie Avalon, Fabian, they're Philly guys, aren't they?
Yep. Frankie, I think, has a home here in California. I think Fabe still lives in Philly. Now I'm going to use Frankie in a movie that we're getting ready to make at the Hop. And I'm going to use Frankie as a priest, playing a priest role. He'd be perfect for it. Perfect. So now, listen, we established friendship. I used to do record hops as an artist with Ernest Evans, who was Chubby Checker. But his name at the time was Ernest Evans. He was on Parkway Records. He had a record out called The Class. And him and I were doing record hops. And Chubby and I became really good friends from those record hops. And then I got to record him 4 different times. I did The Fly, and then I did Back in the USSR with him on Buddha. And then I did 4 sides for my production company, which are actually in a CD I have out called was it the Best of Chubby, or no, it's a box set. Actually, no, what is it called? Oh, what's the name of the album called? A 6-pack. That's what it's called, a 6-pack, and it's got 6 Chubby Checker records that I did with him. Now Chubby was fun. Chubby was fun to be around. Good guy. Took him hunting once. I was a hunter. I used to be a hunter. I couldn't kill anything now. But back in the 70s and the 60s, I was a hunter. I learned how to hunt because I lived in the project, was called the Veterans Project. And it was after the war. So everybody around me were all veterans. So one of my neighbors said to me, "Oh, you got to take you out and teach you how to shoot a gun." So they took me out and teach me how to shoot a shotgun. And I became a hunter. And I used to do a lot of hunting. So Chubby said, one day I said, "Chubby, I'm going hunting next weekend." He said, "Hey, I'd like to go hunting with you." And I said, "Okay, sure." I said, "I'll pick you up. And you know what? Maybe I should pick you up earlier, maybe a day before, and I'll show you some, how to shoot a gun and what to do." So it was going to go wild boar hunting, which was my favorite hunting. I used a pistol. I used a 357 Colt Python, and but I had a rifle for Chubby. So we're out for about a half hour or so, and then we run across 5 boar who head boar start charging and coming right at us. And so I'm waiting for Chubby to take a shot. I didn't hear anything go off. So I put my gun, I put 3 shots into the boar and knocked him down. I turn around and I go, Chubby, 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 where's Chubby? Where'd he go? He climbed a tree. Chubby climbed the tree. He climbed the tree because the boar was coming at us. So Chubby said, hey, John, is that what hunting's all about? I said, yeah, I don't hunt. I don't hunt anymore. There was a lot of experiences like that, a lot. I mean, so many experiences with the artists I've worked with. I mean, Len Barry, The Train. We're at a session. We got 18 musicians, 20 musicians in there, and the clock's running. And I'm waiting for Lenny. And we're downtime now. We're on downtime. So we're running the tracks down, just running. No Len Barry. So, damn, where the hell's Lenny? And we're running the tracks, and no Len Barry. So about an hour later, he comes in. Lenny, where the hell you been? Man, he said, Lenny was a street kid, a real street kid. I mean, he was the street. Hey, man, he said, man, he said, I got hung up at the train. Oh, okay. You had trouble with the train. Yeah. Later on, I find out what the train was. There was a movie out called The Train. So when he got to New York, it was playing at one of the theaters. So he had to go. He went to the movie and see the movie, The Train. And it was an hour late at the session. So I did find out it was not the train, it was The Train, the movie. And Lenny, you went to the movie. John, it was a great movie. You ought to go see it with me, man. I'll go watch it again with you. I loved being around Len Barry. I loved being around him. He always had you laughing, And lyrics, we were on our way over to the studio to do 1, 2, 3. And we always like to put rhythm breaks before an instrumental. So before a sax solo, we would have a build-up of a drums, bass, or that building up into the solo. We did it on a lot of records. But on 1, 2, 3, we just had the congas and the congas, just the congas playing, and then going into the instrumental. So we were walking over, and Lenny says, we got the congas in there. He said, I think it needs lyrics. So we said, okay. We walk about 100 yards, and Lenny comes back with, I got it. He says, baby, there's nothing hard about love. Basically, it's as easy as pie. The hard part is living without love. Without your love, baby, I would die. I go, what? Lenny, you just did that? Oh, yeah. Incredible. And then he had the bridge. They had that bridge, went right into the sax solo. And if you ever listen to a Len Barry record or a Bunny Sigler record, there were geniuses at ad-libs. To get to the end of the record, they just flew out of his brain. Incredible ad-libs. They all made sense, and they either rhymed or they just made great sense. And Bunny Sigler, the same thing, the both of them. They would ad-lib, and I couldn't wait to get to the ending. I just couldn't wait because I was so overjoyed by listening to Len Barry or Bunny come up with these great ad-libs.
John, I just got to ask you,
sure,
if you can tell everybody about all your links out there on the internet, and I got to ask you, have you written a book?
There's a book being written on my life right now. I didn't want to write a book. I don't want to write a book about myself. I'd like someone else who's observed my career and write a book about me. And I've been doing a lot of the recordings of my life, and I send it to the writer. And he just takes them and puts them in the order he needs to put them in. But I keep on recalling different things. And so I put them down in the recorder, and I send it to him. And that'll be interesting to read. I look at this, my friend, as strictly a joy. Making music is a joy, and having had success with it is even a bigger joy. The fact that I was able to do something I love. And how many people in life really do what they really love in life? Not a lot.
Not a lot. I've had a lot of texts. Here's a question for you, John. Was Do the Bop a better version?
No, I think At the Hop was definitely the better version. It was more timely because the record hops were just starting to get big, so it was timely, and I think it was a better record. The Walt Gates, who was the piano player, was only upright bass, piano, and drums. That's it. There was no more instruments. That was three instruments, and Walt Gates played a better piano part. He played a harder driving piano on At the Hop. It was still similar to what we did on the bop, but I liked what Walt did on the second time we did the song. And of course, people knew that the guys, the musicians, knew the song. They knew the chords. They were familiar with it. So they all played a little bit better. They all played a little bit better. No, and because it was timely, I like At the Hop. I really do. I would have liked the Judah Bop to be a hit. That would have been great. But no, it turned out good. It turned out good because it even got me more into the music business because it was such a big hit. So yeah, I'm grateful for that. No, sure. I've had one record. Well, actually two. One was under the Spokesman name that I had a hit with, and then my first record, "Be My Girl," was covered by an English artist actually. Jim somebody covered it, but my record got in the '90s on the national charts here in America. But it started my career, and so you got to be grateful for everything.
John, how frequently are you writing songs now? Are you writing like one a week or?
No, I've been working on my album, and God, I finished one song. Actually, Dave and I had written part of a song, and I finished it, and it's a killer. It's a killer. It's really really good, and it's up tempo, and I sing it really well, and I've got some great musicians I'm going to use. Some of my guys that I grew up with, and some background singers. Yeah,
Do we know who's going to release that? Do you know who's going to release it?
Not yet, but
Who would you like to release it? Can you tell me something that no one knows?
who would I like to release it with? I would love for it to be with Kenny and Leon on their label because we're all part of Philadelphia. But if not, one of the majors, because today really records, what are records? I mean, it's the record business, but there are no more records. There are no more cassettes. There are no more even CDs or, going bye-byes. It's really streaming now. Streaming is the new world. And so you got all the different people that stream music. And that has been beneficial actually to a lot of writers because of the oldies being played so much around the world. And when you put a record out in the early days, you had one city that played it, and then maybe another city played it. Then you got another city played it, and finally, by the time you got the whole country on it, it could be a couple of months. And what made that happen even faster was Dick Clark with American Bandstand, because that show went across the country and records broke faster. But now, it's really it's putting it up on YouTube and some of these streaming channels and getting it played. That's the new record business. I mean,
Now, I've got a question for you. You'll like this one. I'll read it out to you. At what point in your career did multi-track recording come in, and how did it affect yourself creatively?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a good question. I remember clearly going into the studio, and the engineer says, we have a new recorder, and it's a 2-track. And I went, wow. You mean we can actually put the singer all by himself? Yeah. And then I guess it was maybe 6 months later, 3-track. Oh, now you can really do a stereo, real good stereo. Put one track in the middle, left and right. Yeah. So no, that was creatively, it was fantastic. And you wanted to go back to the studio and put the background vocals on again, you could do that. And you can go from 3-track to mono or 3-track to 3-track and double things, double background vocals, double a guitar part. Oh, it was fabulous. And then all of a sudden, 4-track. Oh, now I was in heaven. 4-track that gave us the ability to put things on and leave a track open. So when you were done, you'd say, you're right. I think that one track, I think let's just add a tambourine, or let's add some foot stomping. And we get out a board, and then put it and the microphone right on near the board, and actually we be stomping on the board and record it on the fourth track. But then 8 came along, and that was really 8-track was a creator's dream. Because now you really could do things, double this, do that, use certain kinds of echo, and then a studio in New York called Bell Sound. They were a hot studio. They had a machine built for them, and it was 12-track. Well, 12-track, oh my heavens, the things you could do with 12-track. Oh man, oh, let's add another guitar part. Oh, let's add this, let's add that. So your productions got a little bit more fuller, and after that was 16-track, and then 24, and then digital. No, the multi-track recordings were definitely an advantage to a producer because it gave your mind an open door because you had extra tracks. So doubling vocals, tripling backgrounds, or putting 2 or 3 background parts on. So you got one background part, maybe you're doing a counter background part. And so, no, it gave you the ability to do things. Yeah, I remember I wanted to get a really heavy metal guitar sound. So I said to the engineer, I said, suppose we take the guitar amp and we go put it in the bathroom with all the echo and reverberation that's in the bathroom. Yeah, let's try that. So we put the guitar in there. And because we had all those extra tracks, we were able to experiment. And so the guitar player is playing his instrument. It's being recorded in the bathroom, but the sound was bouncing all over the walls in the bathroom. It sounded fantastic. So the multi-track recording gave you the ability to do experiment. And of course, it gave you the ability to separate the instruments so you could go into the studio when you mixed and do whatever you wanted with each track. A certain echo on the horns, certain echo on the strings, or on the background vocals or the lead vocal. It just gave you so much creative freedom. And I loved it. I loved it. When I had my conversation with George Harrison, we talked a lot about drums. And I remember George saying to me, well, how did you get that? And I told you earlier, I hung that microphone. And George was amazed. And because the records they made were incredible. The sound on those records were incredible. And I remember I was at the studio one day with George and a friend of mine, Joe Tarsia, who was the head engineer at Sigma Sound Studios. He did all the Gamble Huff records. Brilliant engineer. But he was in London with me, and he had never been at EMI Studios. And I'd worked there, and of course I had been there a couple times with George. And so we're walking around, and in the control room on the second floor, EMI had an unusual setup. Their studio, where the engineer was, and the control room was on the second floor, and the actual studio where you recorded, where the Beatles actually their instruments were, was on the first floor. So you look down into the first floor. So we're walking around the studio where the Beatles, had their drums were there and guitars were there, and I had my camera and I'm taking pictures of the drums. But George Martin and Paul McCartney were up in the control room, and they were doing a vocal overdub on Maxwell's Silver Hammer. And so they looked at us down in there and me taking pictures of the drums. And so we go back up to the second level, and Paul comes out. He's going to the loo, and the engineer says, "Hey, Paul." Paul said, "I'll be right back." So he goes to the loo, he goes back, and he stops and he says, "This is John Madara, and this is Joe Tarsia. John did these records, da 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 da, and Joe is the chief engineer at Sigma Sound Studios." And so Paul was kind of quiet. So Joe Tarsia is the greatest, but he's kind of an instigator. He says to Paul, he says, John's got a group in Philadelphia, the Spokesman, and they just had a new album just come out, and they recorded Michelle, and their version of Michelle is selling like crazy in Philadelphia. Paul brings his head back and goes, "Well, ours is selling quite well also. Bye." And he walks off. That was my Paul McCartney experience. But George George was so humble, and such a good guy, such a wonderful human being. So then the engineer comes back to us and he says, "Listen, don't go downstairs and take any more pictures down there." So we got the axe to go down into not go down into the studio anymore. But there's a million of those stories. I mean, there's a million of those stories because they all had a life. You know, they all had something that happened in the studio or something that happened when you met them. There's so many stories, so many. And the biggest
John, I just want to thank you so much for being on the show. Go straight to the top of the charts and don't go stay there. I'm going to play the theme song to end the show. But let me tell you, these songs are going out there day and night, 24/7. And I got to tell you, John, from the bottom of my heart, you've written some of the greatest songs ever recorded. And like even now, I feel like going in my car and I'm going to be playing Len Barry 1, 2, 3 at the Hop, and You Don't Own Me. I'll be playing that today while I'm driving around my car. I got to tell you, you've written so many great songs. And Sadie.
Well, check out the Pixies 3 and the Secrets. I had big hits with those groups in there, and the Sherrys. Pop, Pop, Popeye was a huge record. No, a lot of records that with the girl groups were my favorite records we ever made. I mean, we made some good girl group records. My friend, it was just a wonderful experience. I'm grateful to God that I was able to do it, and I thank you so much for this interview today. It was so much fun, so much fun. Thank you.
I got to tell you, John, it's one of my finest interviews. I've just loved everything you've said and told everyone out there with stories that not everyone's heard. And I got to tell you, even though you like Len Barry 1, 2, 3, and I mean, that's right up there. But for me, You Don't Own Me, with your instrumentation at the start of it, that thing at the start has got me like a, you know, to me, it's the greatest. Okay.
Thank you so much, my friend. Thank you. God bless you so much.
Stay there, John, for a moment. Fantastic. See everybody on Go Straight to the Top of the Charts.
Thank you.
Go straight to the top of the charts.